Well, hello, fellow RV travelers and future fellow RV travelers. Thanks for tuning in. I took a week off, and today, as coming back to you now, I wanted to talk about winter and how to stay warm inside your RV. Now, you can watch a lot of different videos on YouTube about how to stay warm in your RV, right? Most of those deal with insulating your RV, putting foam padding in and around the underneath of your slides, making sure your windows are sealed, using things like Reflectix in your windows, keeping the window shades closed, maybe even putting some blankets up there in addition to the Reflectix. Just a lot of things like, keep your RV vents closed. Well, sometimes you'll want to open those to get a little bit of circulation and to help with issues of condensation, but mostly keeping your vents closed and keeping those little white fluffy pillows up in the vent slots to help with the insulation. Maybe doing things like lining your undercarriage storage bin doors with R15 insulation, maybe taking some of the cracks and crevices within your RV and putting the fluffy pink insulation in there to help keep things warm. Getting a heat lamp, a 100-watt bulb or 75-watt bulb, and plugging those in your water bay. Just things to keep your RV functioning and not having frozen water in your RV pipes or your holding tanks. Skirting's another thing that people talk about, right? Skirting can be a good option, especially if you're staying place and you expect it to be cold or snowy. Which I guess it wouldn't be snowy unless it was cold. So skirting can help a lot. Putting a little outside heater underneath your RV inside the skirting can help. Don't forget to skirt around places like your stairs. That's a little bit harder to do, but you can do it. I've done it. Skirting does not have to be super expensive. The last time I skirted up our Class C RV, we were in South Dakota, and it was winter, and things were frozen, and there was snow on the ground, and I didn't want the cold air blowing underneath the RV, creating a loss of heat. So we went to, I think it was Home Depot, one of those home improvement stores. I learned you have to say not sponsored, so not sponsored. And I got plywood, and I got Reflectix, and I already had a staple gun, and I used the staple gun to staple the Reflectix to the plywood, and then we used cat litter buckets and leveling blocks, things like that. It looked kind of junkyardish, but we were the only people in the campground anyways. And I used that to hold all of the insulated side of the boards up against the RV. Went around the front, did the same thing in the back with the bumpers, and then I cut some pieces of insulation, like that pink insulation board, and fit that underneath where the stairs came down so that there wasn't wind blowing in under the stairs. And I put a small space heater that I ran off the power post outside of the RV, plugged in direct to that instead of plugging it into the RV, and turned that on low heat and put it underneath the RV back towards where the freshwater holding tank was, and things stayed just fine, stayed warm. So what I wanted to talk to you about was not all those things that everybody already talks about, oh yeah, and the heated water hose, which we have a heated water hose and we used it and it works. So I wanted to take a little more jovial approach to how you can stay warm in your RV during the winter. And I had mentioned like how if you don't have slides to run an extension cord through to plug directly into the power post instead of plugging into your RV and maybe overloading your RV with multiple heaters running in your RV. I had talked about how you can do the same thing with a longer extension cord and run it through if you have windows up at your driver's seat or your passenger seat, like in most Class C's. You can put the window down just a crack, run the extension cord through that window, and have a towel over top of the window that you then roll back up, and that towel creates the seal between the inside and the outside of the RV, but you get the extension cord in to run another heater, which those things are great. The thing about an RV is even the biggest RV is still rather small in square footage. So you can get one or two of those space heaters, the kind that have the tip over valve. So if for some reason it gets knocked over, it automatically shuts off. That's a good thing. And if you have pets or kids, you want the kind that are not hot to the touch. Like the front where the heat comes out, that's going to get warm because it's where the heat comes out of. But the tops, the bottoms, the back, those stay cool to the touch. So doing things like that, especially if you are at a campground and you're already paying for the electric, running those electric heaters is great. But those electric space heaters don't directly run warm air or hot air onto your freshwater tank or your holding tanks or your bays underneath your RV, assuming you have bays. Like my travel trailer does not have bays underneath the RV. I get, up front underneath the bed compartment, there's the full pass-through for that travel trailer, but there's no water station in there. It's just an open space for storage, which is how we use it. But that travel trailer is not cold weather rated. Like when things freeze, that travel trailer will freeze. So there's no heated floor, there's no heated ducting that goes to the water tank or the hot water heater, which if you're running the hot water heater, it's probably not going to freeze because it's hot water. But on the travel trailer, like one year when we were using it and it was cold outside, I took an electric blanket and I used 100-mile-an-hour tape, and I took that electric blanket and I taped it all around the exposed freshwater tank underneath the trailer and plugged it in, right? The idea was, this will be a heating pad. It'll keep that water warm enough to not freeze. It didn't. It didn't work. It was a good idea, but it did not work for me. If it works for you, please leave that in the comments. I'd like to know what kind of electric blanket you were using, because mine did not work. After the water froze, I took the heated blanket off and just waited for the water to unfreeze. Now, I did not fill the tank all the way, so we didn't damage the tank, but the water that was in the tank did freeze, even with that electric blanket taped to it and running. So it's a good idea, but didn't work for us. So if it's worked for you, it'd be interesting to know, because you can get some pretty decent electric blankets. You just have to be willing to, leave it outside under your trailer in this case. But if you turn on your RV's propane heater, that's going to blow warm air through all those little ducted vents in your RV, and it's going to create warmth. So the inside of your RV should get warm. And the good news about that is if you have those ducted heat vents around your RV, there are usually vents that go back to your freshwater holding tank, and they may also go around your black and gray water tanks. So, for example, in this Class A RV that I'm sitting in, there is ducted hot air that goes to the water tank, the fresh water tank, and the gray tank, and the black tank. So, if we're running propane heat in our RV, it is also heating those tanks and the storage bays and the water compartment underneath the RV. So use your propane. Now, I know it's a pain in the butt, especially if there's a bunch of snow on the ground, to use your onboard propane tank for heat. And then you have to take everything down, you have to pack up your campsite, and you have to drive your RV to get your propane tank refilled. So, there is a solution to that. We haven't done it on the Class A yet, we will, but on the Class C that we full-timed in for about 8 months, we had an RV dealership install an additional valve on the RV's onboard propane tank. And what this allowed us to do was get a large 40-gallon RV, well, not an RV specific, but an external propane tank that we could then sit that next to the RV and connect the propane hose from the external tank into the regulator on the Class C's propane tank and run that heat. And those 40 pounds of propane lasted us for about 5 to 7 days, depending on where we kept the thermostat set. And my wife does not like cold, so it's usually about 72 degrees inside the RV, no matter what the outside temperature is. And we have been in that RV as full-timers in temperatures a lot lower than 31 degrees or 30 degrees. We've been in the negative degrees with that camper, and it was about 72 degrees inside. Now, we ran those electric heaters as well. We had one in the front and a smaller one in the back. The problem with running your electric heater and having your propane heater turned on as well, because at least in our Class C that had no slides, the electric heaters worked so well that the thermostat in the RV always said temperature is higher than 72 degrees, we're not kicking on the propane heat. So the problem is your RV is staying warm, but your holding tanks that rely on that ducted propane heated air to keep them from freezing aren't getting that heated air. So we would at times lower the heaters, or like in the back bedroom, sometimes turn that off because we didn't need it all the time. And that would allow the thermostat on the propane tank to say, oh, it's less than 72 degrees in here, and it would fire up and it would push that ducted heat through all those ducted vents to include our different holding tanks and the fresh water tank. So that's something that you need to figure out about your RV is, will you still, if you're running those electric heaters, will that keep, although it's keeping the inside of your RV warm and comfortable, will that be enough to heat your water lines and your holding tanks and your freshwater tank? If not, you need to run the propane, and then having that external tank connected to the RV would allow us to do, like I said, about 5 to 7 days of propane on the external tank, and then when that tank ran out or ran low, I would disconnect it, turn on the onboard propane tank that was full, put the external tank in my truck, drive it to the store, have it filled up, drive it back, reconnect it to the RV. So the onboard tank would last months, like the whole winter, because it only ran for maybe an hour every week when I disconnected the external tank and went and got it refilled. I didn't have to pack up the RV. I didn't have to drive the RV in the snow. All I had to do was disconnect the hose, go get the propane tank refilled, turn the onboard tank on, and when I come back, turn the onboard tank off, reconnect the external tank. Voila! Another 6 days of 72 degrees weather inside the RV. And I say weather because we also got rain inside the RV, but not from rain from the clouds, just from the condensation. The cold outside, the warm inside, the exhaling of breath, the plants that we had with their evapotranspiration going on. Yes, that's a real word. And you're going to get some level of condensation, so wipe it down. I've showed you in the past that we have a small dehumidifier, and we keep that running. It's over here off camera right now, running in this Class A, and it's about half full of water that it's sucked out of the air. But, right, if there's a lack of moisture inside the RV, I'm not getting condensation on the windows, I'm not getting mold, so I like to keep a dehumidifier running even during the winter because it's still sucking water out of the air, and having that moisture not in the air will also help, at least I think, it feels like it helps keep the inside of the RV warmer. Now, some fun stuff that nobody tells you about. All right, RV, recreational vehicle. So you got your RV there somehow, which means if you don't like the cold, you should theoretically be able to go somewhere else, right? So that would be the number one recommendation from me, is if you don't want to be in the cold and you don't want to deal with propane and electric heaters and cold weather and snow, before that happens, maybe, like, depending on where you are, if you're in Alaska, maybe a little bit earlier, but the lower 49, which I am not wrong, because Hawaii is south of Alaska. Hawaii is now a state, so when the Alaskans said the lower 48, that was before Hawaii was a state. So you folks from Alaska, you need to update your saying and call it the lower 49, okay? So the lower 49, Hawaii's not freezing at any time anyways, but, like, move south at the beginning of October or the middle of September, all right? Just go south. Go to Tennessee, go to Florida, go to Texas, go to Arizona, go to New Mexico, right? Go to some of those places where it's probably not gonna freeze. Now, you still have to be ready. Remember, just a few years ago, we had a big freeze that hit Texas and knocked out the power grid, and nobody was ready for it because it never freezes in Texas until it did, right? So you still need to be ready, right? Which is when you turn on your propane heater, bust out your small electric space heater, or if you have room for it, you could even get one of those oil-based heaters that it's like an enclosed radiator that you can plug in and circulates the warm oil, right? That kind of radiant heat, that would be good too if you had room to haul it around. But, it's a recreational vehicle. Most of those things are mobile. If you don't want to be in the cold, go somewhere where it's not cold. Tip number 1, move before it's cold. Tip number 2, I'm going to walk back here and show you this because I've got it back here. Let me see. I'll turn the camera a little bit. All right. So there's one of those little space heaters that we talk about. Right now I've got it set on the high heat, and it's been about, well, today was about 50 degrees outside, but for the week or so it's been about 30 degrees. And that little space heater right there, without running, without even having the RV thermostat turned on, right? It's not even turned on. But that little space heater has kept it about 70 degrees inside the RV. I don't know if you'll be able to see the mercury there, but that little red line is right about 70 degrees. And that little space heater is all the way back there. And here's that dehumidifier, and you can see it's about half full. Okay, on, running, it's about half full, even in the winter. But here is another idea for staying warm in your RV. Wear a hat. Keep your head warm. Here's another idea. This is called have a jacket. Alright? And I'll show you how that works. I don't know if you'll be able to see me or not. And sorry for all the bouncing around. But I'm going to go ahead and hope that you can see me. And I'm going to demonstrate putting on a jacket. Right? This will help you stay warm in your RV too. So, hopefully you can see me. I have a hat on, and I have a jacket on. And here's the bedroom thermostat. That's also off. But those are what you would use, or at least what I would use, if I wanted to keep the inside of my RV warm. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Let me turn off this light and see if we can stop having this reflection there. Well, we still have it from the bedroom, but those are some ideas to stay warm in your RV, right? And if it's really cold out, you could put a thicker jacket on. You could wear a sweater. You could wrap up in a blanket, right? We have blankets all over the place. Maybe you saw them back on the bed, but we all, like out here on the couch, we've got blankets. So these are all you can do besides the reflectics, besides the skirting, you know, beside all the heaters that you can plug in to help keep yourself warm in cold weather RVing. So with that, I hope you find this information useful and a bit humorous. I wanted to have a little bit of humor in this time. So like, most people know that they can drive their RV somewhere, so if you wanted to, just drive away from the cold, right? A little bit of humor, but maybe sometimes it needs to be said because nobody says it, so I did. All right, we will see you back next week. Please feel free to leave comments, especially if you have other brilliant techniques to stay warm while using your RV in cold weather and to keep your RV from freezing. If you do, it's absolutely free to you if you go ahead and like this RV. No, that wasn't a joke. If you like this post, it's free to you to hit that like button. It is also free to you to hit the subscribe button. And I am told by many YouTube experts that things that help a channel grow are people hitting the like button and people hitting the subscribe button. So if you would kindly help me and this channel by liking and subscribing, we would very much appreciate it. And Nothing that you may have seen in today's video was sponsored by anyone. So, not sponsored. All right. We will talk with you guys next week. Until then, we look forward to seeing you fellow RV travelers and future fellow RV travelers out on the road and in the campgrounds and in the Walmart parking lots, and, not sponsored, and in the rest stops. All right. Enjoy your cold weather camping or your drive south. Bye.